What was unethical earlier is illegal now. The penalty is 250 crore rupees.
To explore an important shift from visibility to trust, how institutions win the national mindshare, I invite Mr. Maheshwer Peri, founder and chairman, Career360, to address the gathering.
Thank you, Hemant, for calling me here. And I must thank Rajesh. I think a lot of people don't understand that much of what Hemant does is because Rajesh is a partner to the crime. So thank you, Rajesh, for actually enabling this conversation. You know, the first time when I attended Digii100, I always felt that it's a genuine community because it's not sponsored. It is not backed by people who want to be seen and want to be presenting themselves or wanting to be selling themselves. So from that perspective, I think if you see all the conferences that you have in this country, I do respect Digii100 because none of us have paid to be here. None of you are hearing someone who's paid to be heard. And to that extent, you will know that only genuine people will be talking. And I'm talking of myself. Right? Recently, I was listening to Fali Nariman, and he was talking about people who need a phone. And he was talking about how only doctors, plumbers, and adulterous men would need a phone. And I know that you're not doctors and plumbers, so I'll leave it there. See, the thing is, of course, Hemant gave me a mouthful in terms of the conversation that I must have. When I started looking to start Careers360 as a platform to help students decide which is the best college, which is the best course that's possible and all, I was meeting a lot of people. And one such entrepreneur I met, or educationist I met, or the so-called commerce my educationist I met, was in Punjab. And he said, Maheshji, I'll give you a great idea. I said, what is it, sir? He says, मुझे ना बच्चों को लाने के लिए I don't need to advertise, I don't need to do anything. I need to call Dalir Mehendi to my campus. And I'll have about 500 admissions guaranteed. In newspaper, I'll give a full page ad. The reporter will come for a pass because they want to listen to a Dalir Mehendi concert. With the family, they'll come along. And they'll carry a half-page article about how the concert was brilliant. Somewhere along the line, when you listen to that conversation, you know where we've gone wrong. We've lost the purpose for which we exist. The purpose where we say we'll change students' lives. The purpose where we say that we'll pass on learning, make this society a much more knowledgeable, much more informed, much more learned society. That somewhere has been given a short. And this is all about trust. You know, you can always be visible. Like that gentleman, by calling Dalir Mehendi, was very visible. But I know for a fact that even today, the struggle to get students in. Serious students. They will get students. They will get admissions. They'll always surpass their budgets in terms of targets, in terms of how many admissions they've made. But the students who come out of that would not be the people that you would want to be proud of. And it is not the fault of a child, by the way. The child is vulnerable. They'll go by what is sold to them. And we excel in selling. You know, when White Hat Jr. talked of a campaign which is, be a Steve Jobs or be Bill Gates, right? They sold it to the student and most of us bought it. But the company doesn't exist. The company doesn't exist. In education, what you sell needs to last a few hundred years, otherwise you're dead. The institution that sold you better than IIMs no longer exists. It ceases to exist. That's because what they sold is a promise that cannot be kept over a period of time. It can be kept possibly for a year or a couple of years, for a few years. Or it can be sold or missold, or where people believe that what is being told is correct, what is being told is true, but it doesn't stand the test of time. You know, a few days back, there was this THE rankings. To go through the THE rankings, there were few claims that were made. And if you see the numbers, IISc is 52 on the research score. And a few universities in India are 92, 93, 95 on the research score, better than Oxford, MIT, and Harvard. Now, think about it, that they go out to the market and say, better than Harvard in research, or better than Oxford in research, or better than MIT in research. The day they do that, they fall. They've gamified the system for a particular rank. Fantastic, congratulations. But the day they start making that claim, they're dead. Like score, I look at data very closely, very minutely. Recently, I was looking at one of those numbers. I'm not here to take names, so I'll not take names. Not that I'm scared of it, just that I don't want to exemplify by talking only of one institution, because there are many institutions that do the same thing, right? Now, one of the institutions, 15% placement, MBA institution, by the way, 15% placement, 4.5 lakhs median salary, in the top 100 B schools of this country. Now, that's because a few other factors they perfected and they would have got a score because of which they got that rank. But just imagine that they go out in the market and say, top 50 B schools of this country. They falter, they will fall, and they'll not rise after that. Because in the current context, in my times, there was nothing called social media. In my times, even if I had killed someone, it was buried in the newspaper 30 years back. Right? Today, the footprints that you leave behind will trail you, tail you, and harass you over your lifetime. So what you say will always stand. You look at the rankings that are out there and how many people are using the rank to entice a student, right? Versus those people who actually genuinely really work hard, have invested all their life effort, and it's not just the founders, by the founding people who started it, but over a period of time also the culture, the DNA was carried forward by multiple sets of people because of which they exist. I was looking at some ads of Indian Institute of Science. Not in a single ad had I seen saying number one in NIRF or top 300 in QS or THE. None of them. They're still recruiting, they're still asking people to come in, but they don't use that. They don't need to. Now just turn this around and look at people who are only using that to get people in. You exactly know where the challenge is. The challenge is that some of the conversation that we're having with the student is not born by trustability and longevity. And as long as you keep hitting at that, those institutions might prosper, and some of us sitting here will say, oh, listen, these guys are advertising and they're getting good students, wish I had done the same thing. Trust me, you're still in a far better place, because you will, maybe slowly but steadily, but you'll still survive. Some of these who will misuse some of these conversations, some of these data points that might come in one short shrift will not last long. We have lost this art of having a conversation with the student. Like when the Daler Mehndi example happened, I was thinking, this man spends $1 million to get Mr. Daler Mehndi in. And because of which a lot of parents and a lot of students from around the area, local areas come, journalists come, they have a conversation, they enjoy the day and then move on. The reverse of that is they call a great intellectual, a great scientist, spend a similar amount of money and get them in and make it open for everyone to listen to them, because he's a person that you can learn from. That conversation is very different. They might not have got 10,000 people, only 2,000 people, or maybe just 1,000 people. But that 1,000 people will build your institution, because they know that you believe in what they want that outcome to be. Similar amount of money, similar amount of investment. We have lost the purpose for which we exist. And to that extent, marketing and visibility are at the cost of trust. The more you want to market, as a marketer, it is so strange that, I'm standing here selling a marketing proposition, but telling you don't market yourself too much. But it's important. You need to understand where to invest your monies. A few days back, I was in one of those conferences, Nana was there, and was saying that, listen, and it was about coaching institutions. And I said, India will prosper when coaching institutions cease to exist. And I said that, and of course, the host was also very warm to that conversation. He didn't throw me out of the stage. Right? But it's very important for us to understand that education institutions are not marketable commodities. They're not FMCG commodities. Your outcomes speak for you more than what your marketing conversations will. Marketing conversations will only give you a bit of an outreach. But to believe that that will take you over a few decades of your lifetime is the biggest challenge that you'll have to deal with. So understand one thing, that when your communication is there, it must be believable. It must be trustable. People must say that, and you must be able to address when students come back with conversations. I don't believe in a single thing which says 100% placement. If it's 100% placement, you don't need to say that. I don't believe in anything which talks only of higher salary. Recently, people call me controversial, and I'm okay being called controversial. I don't care about, the simple thing is this. There are two sets of arguments on the table. And I will always pick up the argument, even if I don't believe in it, which is not there on the table. Because out of a good debate comes a good conclusion. If you don't even debate particular point of view. So why am I saying this? You will suddenly see all these IITs and NITs talking of their highest salary. And of course, private institutions also followed suit. I dare anyone to talk of, whenever they talk of higher salary, talk of their lowest salary also. I dare them. They would not. They cannot. Because if they do that, they falter. But in communication, you should be able to have an engagement on that. Okay, don't take an ad out of that, saying my lowest salary is so-and-so. But you can actually have a conversation about it when student says, where you say, listen buddy, the guy who got the highest salary is so-and-so. There is also a person who is the lowest salary. If you don't work hard, you will fall here also. And that conversation is missing. So all I would say is, whenever you talk of visibility which is believable. Otherwise, you might actually have one trigger, one spurt, but you will falter dramatically. The second thing is, I somehow think that digital marketing has messed up all our minds. Because now we deal with only Excel sheets. We've stopped understanding that marketing is meant to, engage, have a conversation, discuss fault lines, but still have two people agreeing on a common purpose and not beyond that. It's not about me selling my point of view and I imposing my point of view on another thing. So what we ended, and a lot of people, you would be dealing with Google AdWords possibly. No, Google AdWords, there are two kinds of Google AdWords. One where you're protecting your own brand keyword. So it's what I call hafta that you pay to Google. Because if you don't advertise, someone else comes and sits on your advert and you need to protect that. The other thing is, you engage with platforms which would not have traffic. So what do? They sit on your advert and give you your own lead back to you or your own inquiry back to you. How does it work? Just imagine, for example, that just to put things in context, Careers has a huge amount of traffic and we get organic, right? But imagine a thing where you engage with someone who doesn't have any traffic whatsoever. He doesn't have any audience of their own. So how do they get in an inquiry for you? They, either in hiding or subtly or without you people knowing, pick up your own advert, your own keyword and advertise on Google. And once that comes in, they pass it on to you, right? Now imagine a situation that someone comes, you built a farm, you built a product, you built everything, and someone comes, cuts your crop and gives it back to you and takes money from you. Would you agree on that? When you actually engage with platforms which don't have traffic, there are two things that you're losing out. One is the brand outreach that a bigger platform will give you. And two, because you have not engaged with a platform which has audience, the other platform would ultimately generate an inquiry out of what otherwise would anyway belong to you. We call it interception marketing. What is interception marketing? That I stand outside your college gate. Every student who's coming in, I'll handhold them and bring it to you and say, listen, I brought this child. The child was anyway coming to you. Interception marketing. Because the brand belongs to you, you build the brand. And founders understand this far better than marketeers. Because we all know how difficult it is to create a brand, how difficult it is to create trust in a brand. Because we regularly have sleepless nights to ensure that we do certain kind of outcomes because of a student keeps coming back to us. It can be placements. I always respect institutions which have bigger placement cells and bigger admission cells, by the way. Unfortunately, these days there is bigger admission cell than the placement cell, but ideally I would want it the other way around, right? Now, interception marketing will always harm you. Because the child, assuming that ad was not there, the search was your college name. That's when the advert comes in, right? When the search is, for example, KVR instead of technology, and if the ad was not there, he or she was coming to KVR instead of technology. But because the ad came in, what was organically coming to you was taken away by a third party. And the third party would give it to you, of course, because you partnered with them, but will also give it to a similar bunch of 10 more institutions because he wants to monetize that. That interception marketing is very, very dangerous. And the third thing, which is very, very crucial, and you must look at this very, very closely, is recently we've got the DPDP guidelines, right? Data Protection Policy guidelines. What was unethical earlier is illegal now. The penalty is 250 crore rupees. I'm not even talking of brand reputation. When a student is appearing for an examination and gets a call from your college because you partnered with someone or bought data from someone that you think you got maybe agreements, but ultimately you are responsible because the call is going in your name. The call is going in KVR School Engineering, whatever name, right? When you deal with that, the penalty is so strong that it will cease to exist. You must know one thing very clearly. The DPDP guidelines are extremely strict. They need consent, they need specific consent, and they need periodic consent. If you were to if your marketer, not you, if your marketer ends up buying data without specific consent, and for sure data sellers would not have consent, they would have acquired the data from some other source. And one student complains, just one student complains saying that I don't know how this college got my data, they called me up. And it can be your competitor for all that you know, because they know that you're doing that. All it requires is one single complaint and you're off. So just be extremely careful. Earlier it was unethical that you don't call up a student who's not come to you. It was unethical earlier. Now it's illegal. And the penalty is very, very serious. So you must be looking at the DPDP Act very, very, very carefully. The fourth thing is what you see as the AI bots that have come in. Very recently someone came to me, we are in the center of many things. So people come to us asking for solutions which is unethical, but we tend to gamify many of the systems. So the question that is, sir, can you sir create content for us so that when ChatGPT students searches happen, we are looked at better. So essentially what it means is a third party platform which is creating content which is good in your name, which is favorable to you, would pop up in a ChatGPT search or prompt, and that will benefit them. Now, that again is short term, because ChatGPT also takes not just content from me, but even from Reddit. And your students are not going to keep quiet if they're cheated. So don't gamify the system. I think there's a long-term solution for that, and there is a short-term spurt that you can deal with. Right? So anything that you're trying to do which is artificial, which is not real, which is not true, at some point in time when it falters and when it gets caught, the damage is much more serious than what you gained over many years of time. Right? And the fifth thing and the last thing, I'll close this after this. A lot of you know, I would always say that it is not a favor that does when an EWS candidate comes into the college. It's not a favor. Because when you want to create leaders, you need to have all sections of the society sitting in your classroom. Only then they'll understand the society that you want to go out and live in. It can be, when extranumerary seats were given in some of these public institutions, there was a lot of halla that was created saying that, how can extranumerary seats be given? It can be, for example, I'm so happy that IIT Delhi gives extranumerary seats for girls. Because engineering as a profession always had lesser number of fair agenda. In MBA classes, if you go back 20 years back, you only had a certain set of people. It is so homogeneous that they all look like clones of each other. BTech, Infosys or TCS or Wipro, after 2 years or 3 years of WorkX, want to change and scale and move on to get into an MBA so that you can actually have a career progression. And then over a period of time, they started giving, for academic diversity, they started giving a score. For gender diversity, they started giving a score. For a few other diversity scores also, they started giving it because they wanted a certain set of a class which is so diverse that a conversation can be very, very different. A few years back, I went to one of these large, very, very big B schools, very elite also in a sense. And the conversation, when I said, what is the biggest problem that you want to solve? One guy says, sir, I had to stand 15 minutes in a traffic light. We need to decongest roads. The other one is saying, sir, my mobile signal. These are the problems that you want to solve. You want to be a leader? You're good enough to be a president or a vice president or a clerk in an office, but you cannot be a leader like that. For you to be a leader, you need to understand the society and you need to add value to the society in which you live in, not giving greater salary beyond a point. So for diversity, we actually had a very recent conversation with someone who was saying, listen, I want a conversion percentage. And also do that. Conversion percentage is what you impose on. When you do a conversion percentage, what do people like us do? I'll give you a secret sauce. We say, okay, these people want a higher conversion percentage. Let us send students of a particular genre, gender, checkbox, geo checkbox, so Coimbatore students, and give it to you, you'll have higher conversion percentage. So I will give your students back to you. It doesn't give you diversity. You want to give diversity, then you must go beyond, where for every additional diversity quotient that you need, there is a lot more investment that's to be made. So what is my advice to you? If your diversity is 10%, make it 12% next year and 15% the following year. You can't change it overnight. But for that, you need to invest. Because I know for a fact that in Coimbatore, you have the best colleges out here. Some of the best names are sitting here, I know them. But your diversity is something that's very important for you because your students sitting here would also go beyond Coimbatore to work. And they need to understand the society that they're going to live with. All kinds of, all shades. There is nothing like, I don't say that I'm on the white side of the thing, but my attempt always is that, there is a white and a black. Can I be on the white side of the gray, then on the black side of the gray? That's the only compromise that I can make. In your marketing also, just be sure that it is not just, you don't enter the fray to sell to a student. You should enter the fray to talk to a student, to have a conversation with a student, to engage with the student, to actually have an equal debate with a student, and to even respond to a critique that comes out of you. The more transparent you are, you'll be trusted. You can have 1 million eyeballs, but all you need is 1,000 people who trust you to join you, and that is what is important for you, and that's what you're trying to seek out. Thank you so much.